Can you actually believe that we are now in August? And I'm excited because it's my birthday month, but it also means one thing. It's time to go through every book that I read in July and what I thought of them. If you're new here, my name is Gabrielle and I do bookish and lifestyle content here on YouTube, TikTok and Instagram, and I'm also an aspiring author. July was just a blur for me. There was so much going on in life. And when I was looking at the books that I read this month, I was like, I don't even remember reading them, but honestly, I think I had a really good month. So get cozy, grab a drink, and let's chat books. So I went rogue this month and I literally was like, I need to finish some series that I have been in the middle of for so long, and I decided to continue my Zodiac Academy journey. So I read books 5, 6 and 7. And for context, the last time that I read Zodiac Academy was last year in November, and I've literally been putting it off for 7 months. No, 8 months. It's not so much that I want to put them off, it's the fact that they are so huge as you continue on the series that I'm just like, that is just a lot of reading. But honestly, I'm so glad that I got back into it. I'm not going to go too much into it just because it is a series and I'm in the later stages of the series, but I just want to give you an overview on what I felt about this, because if you're starting the series and you are like, I don't know how I feel about this, it's a bit cringy, this is me trying to convince you that you need to continue. Yes, there may be cringe, there may be light-hearted aspects, there may be a lot of funny, trying to be funny moments, but let me tell you that you will need them. You will need those light-hearted moments later on in the series because of how tragic the situation gets. I read book 5 and I was like, how could we get any worse than this? After the ending of book 4, going into book 5, I felt it was getting more into the high stakes element of the series. The thing about these books, I feel as they really do sort of slow down. Not so much slow down, but you kind of get like a little reprieve before the ending absolutely crushes you. But I felt this month we were breaking out of that pattern. I finished book 5 thinking, honestly, how could the situation get any worse than it possibly could at this moment? And then going into book 6, I was like, okay, we're going to make it through this. We're going to make it through this. It's okay. Book 6 was probably one of my favourites of the series so far. I really found that our main characters really found themselves in this series, and you saw a lot of character development, including the kind of relationships between all of the characters. If you haven't read this series, you do get quite a lot of point of views. A lot of the characters that you perhaps didn't have a lot of a connection with at the beginning of the series, you really start to get emotionally invested in. Like, I could literally cry over the situations that any of these characters face at any point. I cannot predict a single thing that's going to happen. Every single plot twist, I'm genuinely shocked. I think because so much has happened, there's so much that can happen, and you can just never see the way forward. And you don't see what's going to happen, and you don't see any of the tragedy that is about to befall? Is that even a word? It just always keeps us guessing, and it literally has my jaw on the floor about 90% of the way through the books. Trust me, you are going to be grasping at those lighthearted moments with everything that you have because of the utter devastation that you will be facing in this entire series, and I can only hope that we're going to get a happy ending. Because honestly, who knows at this point? The next book I read was Caught Up by Navessa. I read Lights Out in June and I loved it. I had such a great time with it. Caught Up is definitely not as witty and fun as Lights Out. I also felt that there wasn't much plot in terms of the whole dark mafia aspect. I wasn't absolutely obsessed with the characters, although I wanted to be because the main character was a biker boy. But I didn't expect us to be following another online creator. And I thought it was done well in Lights Out, but I didn't really connect with it in this book. The book was much too focused on the whole sex club aspect than it was giving us any real plot, I thought. I would definitely read another book within this universe. However, I can't see what characters we would follow next time. Like, I could see this one coming, but I'm thinking maybe another one of the brothers from the mafia family. If anything, from being a dark romance, they're not too dark. I feel like if you are into really dark romance, this could seem a bit meh to you. However, If you're newer to dark romance, this is definitely a more lighthearted way to get into it. The next book that I picked up was A Soul to Keep. My bestie and I have got our own little private book club where we read absolutely unhinged reads. And July's pick was A Soul to Keep, which is the first truly monster romance that I have read. And I mean truly, because this monster does not turn into a human. So if you're thinking that that's going to happen, it absolutely doesn't. We're talking beast mode the entire time. And although he doesn't have a face, literally his face is like a skull, he was one of the most charming characters that I've read in a book. I really didn't know how to feel about it at first, but the author just made this monster so damn lovable. He was an absolute simp for the female main character, and he literally was fighting his nature to make sure that she was safe. I also really enjoyed the actual world building of this book. I wasn't expecting such a detailed fantasy world with all the demons and the magic system that we had going on, but I was very pleasantly surprised with everything that was included in the world building. It really was quite atmospheric. At times I thought it could have became a little bit boring. Midway through the book we were still in the house, we were still getting used to each other, so I was thinking perhaps if this is going to be the same the whole way through, that the book could have became a little bit boring. However, we did get introduced to more characters and another little plot development, which really helped the whole suspense of the ending. The ending I was a little bit thrown by. It was just not something that I was expecting, but it does make sense in what had happened leading up to that situation. I think I just didn't pick up on a lot of things because I was distracted by the lovable monster. There's a lot of things in here that are like, whoa, jump scare. Which, as a newbie to monster romance, I was like, whoa, what's happening here? However, once you get past that, it was actually pretty good. I don't know what that says about me. I have a little bit of backstory to the next one, but basically midway through July, I had like a sick day and I was on the couch for most of the day, and I saw this film coming up on my For You page consistently, and I was like, do you know what? It's a cartoon. I love a cartoon. We'll watch it. When I tell you this cartoon took over my entire life, and probably is still taking over my entire life because I've literally rewatched it about 6 times. I watched K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix. This is a rogue recommendation, nothing to do with books, but if you're a bookish girly, I feel like you would really appreciate this cartoon. It's on Netflix. Go watch it. It's an hour and a half. It's perfection. The music in it was literally giving me goosebumps. Like, I couldn't control how I felt about this book. I was like, why am I liking this so much? Why do I like this so much? But anyway, in that film, it's a lot of Korean folklore that is included, and it's all demon hunters and demons. And I was like, I need a book that is going to give me the same vibes. I put up a video on my TikTok and a lot of people recommended the God and the Gumiho. If I'm not pronouncing that right, please let me know. So our main characters are a fallen god and a Guimo, which is a 9-tailed fox. And our god is an investigator, and our 9-tailed fox actually works in a coffee shop, but she ends up being his assistant. And it's very reminiscent of the Crimson Moth. We have a lot of that cat and mouse dynamic, but there's also a whole other mystery going on. So it's kind of murder mystery with a sprinkling of enemies to lovers. Not really enemies to lovers, more like I really dislike you to lovers. At first I found it a bit overwhelming just because there's a lot of Korean culture creatures in the book. In order to see the story in my head, I did have to stop and Google a lot of the creatures so that I could have a visual in my head and kind of know what they were. Definitely could have used a glossary with this one. I don't know if there was one because I did read it on Kindle, so it might have skipped it, but I did find that it was a lot easier once I looked up all the creatures and what they represented. A lot of the banter was very lighthearted between the two main characters, and I really did love like the whole dramatic ending that we got. I definitely do recommend, see if you did watch K-pop Demon Hunters and you are looking for a book to give you similar vibes, this is for you. And the last book that I read in the month of July was Satanic Shadows by Leigh Rivers. Basically, at any given point, if I'm like, what am I going to read? I will pick up a Leigh Rivers book at this point. And I'm so glad I did. All the Leigh Rivers books that I've read previous to this have been contemporary dark romances, but this is a fantasy dark romance. So a little bit different for Leigh Rivers. However, I had an excellent time. I really loved the premise of the story. So it was a human stolen from the human realm and took to this immortal realm, but it is like a school or an academy. And we don't know why she's there. However, all the immortal creatures in the school are learning to pretend to be humans because in their realm there's been a curse, so they're having to live in the human realm, but they need to learn to pretend to be human so that they fit in and don't cause any suspicion. And we have a blonde MMC that is the head teacher's son. I'm not saying anything, but we have hate. Hate. Loathe. However, when I tell you the tension that is between these two, I was literally drooling on the floor because I was like, these two need to get together. I need to get them to get together now because they are driving me insane with the bloody tension that they are giving. I literally could not sit still with the tension that was flowing off of these two. I did find some of the dream aspects of the book slightly confusing, and honestly I'm still a little bit confused, but after the ending, I am so excited to read the next one in the series, whenever that may be. I am there, I am ready, I'm tuned in. Give it to me, Leigh, because I need it. So overall, I read 7 books in the month of July, which I think is very impressive considering the length of the Zodiac Academy books. Just overall, I just had a good time with a lot of the books that I read this month. I was glad that I put in a lot of books that didn't really have much high stakes in there, just so I could be okay with what was happening in Zodiac Academy. But I'm really excited to finish Zodiac Academy, hopefully in the month of August. But tell me, what books in July did you read this month that you absolutely were obsessed with? And if you liked this video, please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.